I'm Matt Dolly, and this is Viper Bites. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And this week, we are going to go continue with our team-by-team preview series with our next stop, Dallas, to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, who are coming off a 12-5 season in 2022, a season in which they scored 467 points while giving up just 342. That's right, they had a points differential of 125. You can do the math, you can double check it. I'm just assuming that's what it is. I mean, at least that's what I have written down here. Now, as far as their offense was concerned, they were the 13th best passing offense in the league last season, averaging 223.1 yards per game, while their run offense was 9th in the league, picking up 131.7 yards per contest. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, Dallas was good, especially against the pass, where they were the 8th best passing defense in the league, only surrendering 207.8 yards per game. Meanwhile, their run defense was their Achilles heel, as they ranked 22nd in the league, allowing 124.4 yards on a per-game basis. Dallas did two things better than 90% of the league last season. That was scoring points, where they averaged 26.8 points per game, which is 4th in the league, and getting after the quarterback, sacking the opposing quarterback on 54 occasions. That was tied for the second highest mark in the entire National Football League. Now, combining the two, it's not easy, so it's easy to see why the Dallas Cowboys had that plus 125 differential when it came to points. That was only 4th behind the Eagles, the Bills, and the 49ers. Dallas took care of business at home, winning 8 of 9 contests last season, including a 50-34 victory over the Philadelphia Eagles, a game I might have to add that Jalen Hurts, he happened to miss due to injury. However, on the road, Dallas, they were only 500, splitting their 8 contests. Dallas, they have all the pieces in place here to challenge the Philadelphia Eagles for that divisional crown. They just need to find a way to put it all together, especially on the road. If they can do all this, I see another 12-5 season when it's all said and done. And that's going to be right there with the Philadelphia Eagles come week number 18. Now, when we dive into the camp battles here ahead of 2023, for Dallas, they have a very unique situation, especially at the tight end position. They have 3 capable tight ends in Peyton Hendershot, Jake Ferguson, and the second-round draft pick in Luke Schoonmeyer. That's right. You got the 2 incumbents over there. You got a high draft capital tight end, all taking place. Dalton Schultz, he is no longer there, the Dallas Cowboys. He signed via free agency with the Houston Texans. We talk about how that's important because last season there was 89 targets, which was the 7th most at the position, that went to Dalton Schultz. This is going to be a tight end by committee thing in fantasy, possibly, but can one of these tight ends separate themselves from the rest and maybe give you a viable starter at some point during the season? When we look at this draft, we talk about Schoonmeyer there, drafted in the 2nd round, pick number 58. Some of the other Dallas Cowboys selections, first off, in the 1st round, pick number 26, they went to address that run defense. I mentioned that 22nd ranked run defense with the selection of Michigan defensive tackle Mazie Smith. That's going to be a huge one. They went back-to-back Michigan Wolverines there with Schoonmeyer there in the 2nd round. In the 3rd round, it was linebacker DeMarvion Overshawn there, the linebacker out of Texas. In the 4th round, pick number 129, it was edge rusher Viliami Fiacco there. In the 5th round, offensive tackle out of North Carolina, Asim Richards. And in the 6th round, pick number 212, a running back which the Dallas Cowboys are very familiar with, and that is Kansas State product Deuce Vaughn. When we look at the additions and the subtractions of this Dallas Cowboys roster here throughout the offseason, we have to look at the adds of Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Cooks, Ronald Jones, and offensive tackle Chuma Adoga. As for the losses, the biggest one as far as name brand recognition alone is Ezekiel Elliott there, a running back whose writing has been on the wall for some time. The efficiency has clearly dipped, and the Dallas Cowboys, they have an explosive running back that they needed to give an opportunity to in Tony Pollard. The other losses there, we mentioned Dalton Schultz there, guard Connor McGovern, wide receiver Noah Brown, cornerback Anthony Brown, and linebacker Luke Gifford. When looking at these offseason moves, the best move that the Dallas Cowboys made, I like the addition of Brandon Cooks there. He adds a player who can stretch the field and open up things for CeeDee Lamb underneath, something that the Dallas Cowboys were desperately missing for most of the season last season. But finally cutting the cord on Ezekiel Elliott after multiple years of being outplayed by Tony Pollard. It wasn't even by a little bit. You could clearly see that Tony Pollard makes this Dallas offense so much more dangerous, so much more explosive. So it's good to see that Tony Pollard is going to be given the opportunity. That being said, what's Tony Pollard going to be able to do with his opportunity? He's never been that guy to carry that workload. That's something we need to monitor throughout the offseason and into the regular season. When we look at the worst move that this Dallas Cowboys team made, Listen, Dallas, they had a pretty good offseason. They kept the players that they needed to keep, and they really didn't make any moves or any bad signs that make you go, really? You're bringing him in? So, you know what? I would normally say that Ronald Jones is that guy because I'm not a big Ronald Jones fan, but he does add a certain depth to this Dallas Cowboys team, especially when we talk about Ezekiel being gone. We're looking at a Malik Davis, Ronald Jones, and a Deuce Vaughn backing behind Tony Pollard, who is really an unproven commodity there when we talk about a huge workload moving forward. So Ronald Jones, he may be the worst move for the Dallas Cowboys team, but he could have a role at some point this season. I mentioned for the Dallas Cowboys team, I think 12-5 is going to be that record that they're going to finish up with, which puts them right there with the Philadelphia Eagles come week number 18. You can't ask for more. If you get an opportunity to compete with the Eagles right to the final game of the season, that's going to make Dallas fans happy. It's going to make Philadelphia Eagles fans a little bit nervous because we know that no team has repeated as NFC East divisional champions since the Eagles did it between 2002 and 2004. But again, it comes down to what Dallas can do on the road. So we've talked about how explosive that this Dallas Cowboys offense was in 2022. They're just as explosive, if not more explosive here in 2023. So here's the top 5 fantasy assets for the Dallas Cowboys. At number 1, it's CeeDee Lamb, who had 156 targets last season. He would end up catching 107 of them for 1,359 yards and 11 touchdowns. That was good enough for wide receiver 6. And yet, for some reason, we're not even considering him a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. I mean, the consensus is there, but it doesn't feel like Lamb is getting the respect that he deserves. Lamb, he was also 6th in yards per route run. So the yardage, it's going to be there once again in 2023. At number 2, Tony Pollard. Speed kills in the NFL, and Pollard had 17 breakaway runs last season, which was the 3rd most, despite only having 193 carries. Pollard is the number 1 option now, and is coming off a season in which he averaged 5.2 yards per carry and 9.5 yards per reception. At number 3, listen, if you've got Lamb at number 1 and you got Pollard at number 2, that means number 3 has to be Dak Prescott, who finished as a top 14 fantasy quarterback on a per-game basis in all 7 of his seasons. In 2020, Prescott, he was well on his way to a career until that injury ended it all right there. He is now a couple of years removed from that, and he has more explosive weapons in this offense than he has ever had. At number 4, it's Brandon Cooks. Shoot your shot. Thanks to last season, a season I choose to forget, Cooks' ADP has basically been cooked. He's at wide receiver 43. Prior to last season, Cook had produced 6 1,000-yard seasons in 7 years. Now, one thing Dallas has been missing the last couple of years is a guy who can stretch that field opposite of CeeDee Lamb, especially when Michael Gallup was missing time. And speaking of Michael Gallup, he comes in here at number 5. Yeah, that's right. Gallup has seen his stock rise just a little bit throughout this offseason. Now he is fully healthy. Now he is fully recovered from that ACL tear. Gallup is well positioned in an explosive offense here to outperform his current ADP of wide receiver 59. So diving into the fantasy implications of this Dallas Cowboys roster, who is the fantasy player that you need to have this year? They want to run the ball. Mike McCarthy has said that he wants this Dallas team to run the ball more than it has in the past. They also want to turn the ball over less than they've done in the past. Look at Dak Prescott last season. So there's no doubt in my mind that McCarthy legitimately wants to run the ball, basically to protect Dak Prescott from himself. Now, I am a little bit concerned that some of that efficiency is going to dip when it comes to Pollard's production, having that larger workload. But watching that explosiveness that he has, that he possesses, very few players have that, and it has me hooked. More often than not, you're going to have to grab a mid to early 2nd round for your fantasy team. I don't see him dropping to the 3rd round very often. But coming off a 1,000-yard season, which he only had those 193 carries, fantasy managers, they've been salivating for an opportunity for Pollard. And with Ezekiel Elliott gone, that opportunity is right now, unless you're worried about Ronald Jones. So where does the biggest bust potential come from? Look, the schedule doesn't do the Cowboys any favors. They play the Eagles twice. They play the Commanders twice. They play the Chargers. Those are all top 10 pass defenses. They also have to play a Buffalo Bills team that's a pretty good pass defense. One Jordan Poyer, Mike Hyde, and Tre'Davious White are all in, which they're going to be. They also play Miami, who added Jalen Ramsey. Listen, CeeDee Lamb has his work cut out for him in 2023. Again, I'm not saying that Lamb is going to be a bust, but he carries the greatest risk considering he is a late 1st, early 2nd round fantasy pick. In the fantasy playoffs, he's likely to see a lot of Tre'Davious White and Jalen Ramsey before facing the Commanders in week number 17. So pump those brakes just a little bit. I love CeeDee Lamb here, but you got to just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Now, the best fantasy value on this Dallas Cowboys roster. Last season, Dak Prescott had that Jameis Winston type trajectory. You know, the Winston where he threw 40 touchdowns, 40 interceptions. Now, it's probably a good thing that Prescott only played in 12 games. Now, looking closer at those 12 games, Prescott threw 3 or more touchdowns in a third of those contests. Yeah, that's right, 33%. Only Mahomes and Burrow had a higher percentage of their games, resulting in 3 passing touchdown performances. CeeDee Lamb is going to get his, but Brandon Cooks, he's also going to play a factor in all this. At the end, wide receiver 42, that's a wide receiver 4. That's why you're getting the best value here at Brandon. I bet you thought I was going to say Dak Prescott. No, Brandon Cooks is the best value. Wide receiver 42. That's a wide receiver 4. He's more than capable of giving you a top 24 fantasy season by the end of the year. He's done it before when he's been counted out. So Brandon Cooks is that wide receiver 2 that you're getting at a wide receiver 4 price right now. And the fantasy sleeper this year, let's dig deep here. Let's get dangerous, and let's go with Malik Davis. We don't know for certain if Tony Pollard can shoulder the load for an entire 17-game schedule there. We also know what Ronald Jones is at this point of his career. We also know that Deuce Vaughn is more of a change of pace type back. Elliott had 231 carries last season, and it's hard to imagine that Pollard finishing with more than 250 carries, meaning Malik Davis could be in line for those goal line touches, possibly even 200 touches at some point in the season. Now, no one is talking about this. I haven't heard Malik Davis's name come up too often as a sleeper. It seems that everyone's got those Tony Pollard blinders on right now where they can't really make do what's going left, what's going right. You have to be very conscious of the rest of these backs in this Dallas Cowboys backfield, because last season, Pollard and Elliott basically split the load, and Elliott has a large amount of carries that are not being accounted for right now. That said, Dallas could easily bring in another free agent here before the start of the season, like a Fournette. Heck, they can even bring back Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know. It's all going to depend on what that price is. You know what? Malik Davis, he could probably even be cut at some point. We don't know how it's going to shape out. So that's why you have to pay attention to this Dallas Cowboys team throughout the offseason. They're going to be challenging the Philadelphia Eagles for that NFC crown. And you know what? They're going to be in the Super Bowl conversation. That's how good this Dallas Cowboys team is. So if you're looking for early Super Bowl favorites, you might as well put a little bit of money down on the Dallas Cowboys heading into 2023.